Hello, I've wanted to make this video for a while. This is going to be a video about 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, which is a game I beat like maybe 2 months ago, and I actively think about every day since then. And there has not been a game that stuck with me this hard in so long. And I know I make a lot of videos about just gushing about games I like and series that I'm recommending people. This one's a little different. I genuinely believe this is a masterpiece in storytelling and just video games in general. Video game storytelling, I'd say. Whether the gameplay is up your alley would be mostly dependent on your interests, but man, it has been a long time since I've played a game this good in every way. Every single way. I was blown away. So I'm sure people have seen this game around. It's definitely just been talked about in the internet video game zeitgeist in general. It's a game made by Vanillaware, which are the people who made games like Dragon's Crown, which you probably know for specific reasons. Games like Muramasa the Demon Blade for the Wii. And they also made one of my favorite games of all time, Odin's Sphere, and its remake on the PS4. Immediately you would notice that the art style in these games is super distinct, super beautiful. Very like painted vibe, very anime, but still really, really gorgeous games. I mean, that's something that goes without saying. That's something I don't have to explain to anybody to try to get them to play this game. If you're into visual fidelity when it comes to animation and just in general visuals, this game is going to blow your fucking mind. I mean, all Vanillaware's games are going to blow your mind. They are masterclass in terms of visuals, which is funny because I think I just used that same word to describe the story. Anyway, they're directed. This one is directed and written, and mainly the main guy on this game is George Kamitani, who is the dude that made basically did all the previous art for all the games. And I think he directs most of the games too. And he's a genius. He's literally a genius. He is a sleeper fucking genius in the game industry. I don't know why not enough people talk about this guy. You know, I talk a lot about Uchikoshi, that's the guy who made Zero Escape, and people talk about Kojima, the guy who made Metal Gear Solid. And this man needs to be talked about more often because holy shit, he has quite the portfolio, and he's talked about how this game is a lot of his almost his magnum opus. He'd been working on this game for a long time. Its story was a big project for him, and it combines a lot of things he loves in media, and it shows in spades. It is insane. So just to give you a little breakdown of the game you play as 13 different characters in a kind of visual novel-esque style. It's not really, it's funny because the game is also really unique and it doesn't really go into a genre that I could describe personally. I think the story segments, which is the part I'm talking about now, they're like an adventure game, but more emphasis on dialogue. There's way more emphasis on just dialogue between characters. The actual adventure game parts where you're, for example, collecting items to move on, talking to people and, you know, getting information to move on, is not very prevalent. It's pretty linear. There's not a lot of, which I will get to. It's pretty linear in terms of its moment-to-moment gameplay. There isn't like, you don't collect an item to get somewhere. It's just continuous storytelling through basically the only thing you can do in that moment, which would be like move on. But there is a lot of moments where you have a choice to make, and you can, if you do certain things, it branches the pathway on like a timeline that you can view pretty much at any time. And at first, when you start the game, that is a big mechanic. You have to like time things. You have to like make sure you're basically talking to someone before another character leaves or something. And I remember thinking, oh my god, this is going to be insane. And coincidentally, they don't actually do that a ton in the game. There are a few instances where they do, and there's a lot of instances where you are making decisions, but it's not like an adventure game. There's not like, that's not the puzzle that needs to be answered really. It's usually pretty self-explanatory and pretty linear. I don't think anyone will have to look up a guide. I remember like looking up something once, but I think I was just like tired and just could not figure it out for some reason. But I think most of the time, I don't think anyone would need to look anything up. It's not like confusing like an adventure game. It's not really like a point and click. And it doesn't really have that kind of like it's not just a narrative like a visual novel. It's kind of this weird in between, and that is only one half of the game. The other half of the game is completely RTS horde battles, which is really humorous almost at first, because you're like, this is such a stark difference from the other mode that we just played. It is straight up like Google Maps ass fucking like RTS. There are like barely any visuals when it comes to the actual units you're playing as. It is like all like little just grids and shapes, very vague in terms of like what you're doing. It's very strange, but it's fun. It's actually genuinely fun. I don't think it's like mind-boggling. This part of the game is definitely the weakest link in terms of everything else in the game, but that's not saying much because it's still pretty satisfying, and it's probably in RTS standards not amazing again, but I do like it. I don't think it takes away from the game at all, actually, and I think without it, maybe the story elements would be a little too tiresome, because it's a pretty long game, all things considered. Even subtracting these destruction parts, these RTS parts, the game's probably at least close to like 25 hours, and then with those parts it gets up to like 40. So it'd be a lot to take in, and I know that's somewhat of the appeal for visual novels, but I think the gameplay aspects of the visual novel parts would make it a little more tiresome. It's not just reading, you are still committed. So I don't know, I think it works well, and I think its balance is surprisingly implemented well, and it's satisfying to play. That's all I'm really going to say about the destruction parts. Honestly, that's why I wanted to get into this right now. The gameplay in this game is pretty substandard in a lot of ways. It's like, it's good, and I think it does its job well, but that's all it wanted to do, and that's all it needed to do. And the rest of it is some of the most impressive shit I've ever played in a video game. So the main thing is the story. So the story, like I said, you play as 13 characters, and the best way I can describe it is it's like a lot of different sci-fi elements from different types of sci-fi. You know, you deal with like very early on, and this is, I'm going to keep this very, by the way, this is very much not spoilers. I want people to play this video game. So anything I say that might sound like a spoiler, it is not a spoiler in the slightest. You learn this stuff really early on. This is stuff that you might not 100% like understand immediately, but like isn't like a you know, a plot twist. It's something that is established and given, you're given that information probably within the first 10th of the game. So just fair warning. If you don't want anything, I mean, you can take my word for it right now. If you play this game, you won't be disappointed, especially if you have an interest in storytelling and video games, if you have an interest in the art, if you have an interest in the characters, if you have an interest in RTSs, if you have an interest in story or visual novels, you will probably like this game. It is very hard to hate, in my opinion. Anyway, so play it if you want, but I'm going to continue. So the game is basically all these different aspects of sci-fi storytelling, stuff like giant robots, giant monsters, like kaiju monsters. There's mechs, there's time travel. There's like, you know, how that time travel affects like different eras of time, you know, all these tropes that you see in sci-fi all the time, but it's handled in such an amazing way that I was mind-blowing. Like at first I was like, this is a really cool love letter to sci-fi, and I was like, and by the end, again, keeping it vague, I was like, wow, this is an incredible deconstruction of sci-fi. And like, it's like way more nuanced than it first comes off to be, which is funny because it immediately comes off as pretty like impressive. Like, you know, it's like, this is a lot of elements that they're doing really fast, and it's all working really well. It's all really fun and cool. And there's like a lot of little mysteries that you find as you play through the game that are answered. And then the more broader mysteries come out, the more, you know, why these characters are here, what they're doing, what their motivations are, what all this information is, why are their mechs here. What the hell was that? Someone outside like revving an engine. Hold on. I don't even remember what the fuck I was talking about. Sorry, there was a stupid motorcycle or someone in a loud car just sitting there for like 10 minutes. God, what was I talking about? Sci-fi elements coming together, blowing my mind, crazy shit, you know. Oh, yeah, so it opens up to the broader story elements eventually, and those are revelations that, like, explain so much, and it's so much fun, and it's just been so long since I've experienced a story that's so layered, and in the best way I can describe it, it's gonna sound really cheesy, it's like, it's so layered, and as you peel it apart and you get closer to the center and just the understanding of everything, it's, like, so rewarding and fun. It is such a good feeling. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like kind of like brain candy. It's like you're constantly stimulated because there's constantly this information that's given to you that you have to think about. You don't like, it's not just like blatantly given to you. You know, this is information that you use by contradicting it and comparing it to other information that you're hearing throughout the game. And it's like this, it tickles your brain. It tickles some piece in your brain the entire way through. And it's such a good feeling up to the very end, and the ending is so incredible. It is so incredibly well done. It blew my mind. One of, if not, I am not joking when I say this, one of, if not my favorite ending to any video game story ever written. I have not experienced a game like this. It is insane. But regardless, so the coolest thing, and surprisingly, yeah, the coolest thing about all this, which is just crazy to me, is it's done so well. Like, if I were to have described the entirety of this game's story to you, you would be like, that sounds so ridiculously convoluted and stupid, and there's no way I would play through that game and understand that. But you will. You literally just will, because it is so smart with how it gives you information. It is like, like I said, it's very linear in its moment-to-moment gameplay, but it's very non-linear in its entirety. It's like, it's a weird thing where it's non-linear and linear at the same time, where you're like, the best way, it's hard to, I'll just put a scenario basically. So you'll be doing it a remembrance, which is the visual novel part, and you'll get to a certain point in remembrance where your character is locked. You can't continue, and it says you need to complete 70 or 40% of this character's remembrance to unlock that. So you do theirs. So the game controls how much information you have and what information you have. So it knows exactly what kind of plot, you know, details to give you. But that being said, it's not that restrictive. You know, there's a lot of opportunities for you to choose what you want to do. You know, you can choose to do somebody's remembrance or do the destruction mode, and the destruction mode will also have a gate where it's like you cannot go on until this part. So you have freedom, but it knows how much freedom you have, and it controls it. It's a very what do you call it, like a controlled freedom in terms of its storytelling, which is important, but also everyone has a different experience. You technically learn information at different rates, but you all do have the twists in the same fashion. You know, you still are, like, no one just is like, well, I learned that twist before that happened. It's like, no, they know when to give you twists. They know when to give you that information, and everyone will have those moments of like, oh my God, and those aha moments that they want you to have, because that's how it's fucking written. But it's so impressive as you play it, because you're like, there are literally 13 characters you're playing as, and you're understanding everything. And it's, again, like I said, it tickles your brain where you're like, I just don't expect myself to really fully grasp all this, but you do. And also, I love games like this. Oh man, this isn't appreciated enough in video games, especially story-based games. This game has like a built-in Wikipedia. So like, as you learn information, you go to another mode called Archive, where it gives you every single scene you've seen in the game in order of, I don't know, when you've seen them or chronological or something. I think you can go, like, you know, organize them somehow. I don't know how they're actually organized. I think it's like, at first it starts out a certain way. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's organized in a big list, and also it has all of the information about basically every important thing in the game, even some not important things like fucking ice cream and shit. It makes sure you will never be confused, because the story is very complex. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of like different characters' motives, different character stories all overlapping each other, but it's not complicated. It's not confusing. Well, I guess it is complicated. It's not confusing. That's the best way to word that, because it gives you all of the resources you need to understand this story. So, and it wants you to meet it halfway. You know, they put all this work into writing this story. They want you to be as invested as they were making it, or at least somewhat, which I appreciate so much, because, like, you know, this is a two-way road here. Like, you know, I want the coolest and most unique storytelling possible, and sometimes that requires you to do a little research, because you have that moment of realizing this stuff. You have to do the research a little bit into the game story and figure this stuff out on your own, and it is insanely satisfying when you do. I still learn things about the plot. I was actually watching some guys talk about the ending the other day, and there were like things that they were talking about that I never even realized when I beat that game, and I was like, shit, like that puts this into perspective. And there's still things I'm a little confused about. There are still aspects of that game story that I think about and I'm like, I don't really 100% understand that part. And like, I'm sure if I, you know, read up on the archives a little bit more, I would understand that. And even with some of the knowledge I didn't fully grasp, or, you know, some details that I might not know exactly how to explain, it was still extremely satisfying game to play. And obviously the visuals and the music is really, really good. I love, also, on top of all this game's got a very sci-fi story, and I've noticed with a lot of case scenarios, sometimes it's tough to write characters well. Sometimes, you know, they go into an archetype. A lot of these characters feel very tropey in some ways. They are all so well written, besides like maybe one or two, and even then, they're not poorly written. They're just kind of like a stand-in for the plot. You know, it's like they need to be there for the plot to advance, and they kind of feel like that. They don't have like a lot of character beyond that. But man, some of these characters are extremely charming, and they have a lot of diversity too, with like LGBT representation in the game, and just like a lot of like unique kind of what do you call it? Sort of unconventional ideas for the kind of the tropes that they go for, relationships. It's cool. It's genuinely interesting, and the characters keep the game rolling. Like, if this game had the plot but the characters weren't strong, I wouldn't say it would completely fall apart, but it would definitely not be as engaging. And I think that's a big part of this game, is you want to be invested because you care about the characters. And some of the characters, like I just said, are super, super charming, man. Oh man, Miura. I love Miura. He is so wonderful. I loved every second of him. They're all great, and I just love them, and they're all just beautiful babies that, man, it's just a good game. It's just such a good game. I know I've just been ranting about it and raving about it, but please play it. And the thing that sucks is that it's exclusive to PS4. And like, I know not everyone has a PS4, and I know not everyone can afford a PS4. And Atlas, please, oh my flippin' God. Oh my frickin' flippin' God, because I know you don't want to hear me swear, Atlas. Put this on PC. Like, what the hell? Like, put these games on PC. There's, like, I know Vanillaware probably makes these games with a PlayStation 4 in mind. Do the porting for them. Give them money to port it. This game would do amazing on PC. It literally, the RTS sections could control with a mouse. That would be great. And man, just do it. Just do it. Put all your games on PC. I know they put like Persona 4 Golden on PC recently, and it's been selling like crazy. And it's like, Alice, come on. Like, this is, I could have told you that. Like, come on. Like, it's not a bad idea to put stuff on Steam and even on Switch. I mean, this game could probably, actually, maybe not. It actually, one of the last levels in this game, like lagged to shit for me on PS4. I couldn't even believe it. There was so much stuff on screen. I was literally thinking my PS4 was gonna fucking crash. It's almost funny, like, looking back at it. I'm like, why did they go that hard with the amount of enemies in that stage? But yeah, this, maybe it wouldn't run on Switch, but it would run on PC, and there's no excuse for it not to be on PC, personally. I think this game could sell a lot better on PS4. I saw an article today. This game came out in November, I think. I saw an article saying it sold 400,000. Not even cracking 500,000. That sucks. That is, I mean, that's probably perfectly fine numbers in some case scenarios. This game was probably worked on for over a decade. Like, it just hurts to see a game like this not do as well as it should. Like, this game is beautiful. Just, it literally head to toe one of the best experiences I've ever had with a source of media, and it's insane that so many people are sleeping on it or just don't have an ability to play it. And I don't think that's anyone's real fault. I mean, like, you know, not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. But there's a lot of people that it is their cup of tea, and I'm like, why haven't you played it yet? Just like friends and stuff, you know? So hopefully this convinces you to buy it. $60 is a little cheap for a video game in general. I get that. If it goes on sale for $40, do not pass this up. I'm telling you, $40 is well worth this game. I would have paid $1 million for this game. Bajillion. I would have cut my savings. I would have just been like, fuck it. Like, let's just pay every penny I have for this experience, because there's nothing like a good video game experience, you know? It's priceless. Maybe you could also just watch a YouTube video. Actually, this is one of those games that I would like, if you're just really want to experience the story and you don't want to buy a PS4 and they're just not budging on this PC release, just watch a video of it. I mean, you're not missing much in terms of gameplay, so you'd get a very similar experience out of it. It is so fun. Man, what a good game. 13 Sentinels, just unbelievable. Please play it. Please play it. This is just basically a PSA for people who don't know about this game, but I know I do this a lot. I just like my video games, man. And I might be over-exaggerating. Maybe some people have played it and they're watching this and they're like, okay, it wasn't that good. And maybe I haven't experienced enough media for me to really compare this to others. Because some of the plot threads do remind me of other pieces of media, but it handles it so well. It really does. And I don't think anyone can deny that. The fact that it's paced so well and it keeps you engaged so well with so many branching paths and so many different characters, it's fucking impressive, if anything. And the visuals are good too, so fuck it. No one can complain. My opinions are totally objective. You cannot have a different opinion than me. I have learned that very, very strongly in the World Ends With You video I have learned very, very blatantly that you cannot have other opinions. There's only an objective opinion about things, guys. I'm sorry to break this to you, but really, I mean, it's just the way it is. I'm kidding, but please play this video game. That's all I'm saying, please. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble. Hopefully next time I will be a little bit more cohesive than just spewing words at you as fast as I can. But yeah, thanks for listening.